My name is Rafael, and at 28, my life turned into a nightmare I never imagined. In a single night, I lost my wife Carolyn and became the father of premature twins. The accident that changed everything happened on a rainy Friday in December. Carolyn was 8 months pregnant when a drunk driver ran a red light and crashed into our car. Doctors managed to save my children with an emergency C-section, but Carolyn succumbed to internal injuries. As I struggled with the pain of loss and the joy of becoming a father, I discovered something even more devastating. My entire family had decided I couldn't handle raising 2 children alone. My parents, my siblings, my mother-in-law, they all simply disappeared when I needed support most. No phone calls, no hospital visits, no help in the first desperate months with babies who cried all night. They judged me incapable before even giving me a chance. If you want to find out how I got revenge on all of them, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. But before I continue telling my story and how it all happened, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to hear where you're from. For 5 years, I raised Lucas and Sophia completely alone. Sleepless nights, diapers, balls, first steps, first words, all without a single family member present. But I did it. Not only did I do it, but I became the best father I could be. Until one day, out of nowhere, they all came back, and it wasn't out of longing or regret. It was because they discovered Carolyn had a $2.5 million life insurance policy, and that I was about to receive that amount. Little did they know I'd already planned exactly how to handle each of their greed. It was December 15th when Carolyn and I went out to dinner at our favorite restaurant. She was beaming, her 8-month belly round, and talking excitedly about the name she'd chosen for the twins. Lucas and Sophia, she repeated, stroking her belly. Our little miracles. I remember every detail of that night. Carolyn wore a blue dress that brought out her eyes, and I couldn't stop looking at her. We were so happy, planning what our life with the babies would be like. We talked about which room would be the nursery, our first family vacation, and everything we would do together. The rain started to fall heavily as we left the restaurant. Carolyn laughed, saying it was a sign of good luck. Rain brings renewal, she said, giving me a kiss before we got in the car. I drove slowly, taking extra care because of the bad weather and her pregnancy. It was at the intersection of Avenida Central and Rua das Flores that our lives ended. The light was green for us when, suddenly, a red pickup truck sped by from the right. I didn't have time to swerve. The impact was devastating. When I woke up in the hospital 3 hours later, a tired-eyed doctor told me that Carolyn had succumbed to her internal injuries. But that, miraculously, they'd managed to save the babies through an emergency C-section. Lucas was born weighing 2.1 kilograms, 4.7 pounds, and Sophia 1.9 kilograms, 4.4 pounds. Both were in the neonatal intensive care unit, fighting for their lives. At that moment, I couldn't process the information. Carolyn was gone, but our children were there, breathing, fighting. I needed to be strong for them. I needed to be both a father and a mother. I called my family, hoping for support, hoping they would understand that I needed them more than ever. The first call was to my mother. Mom, Carolyn died, but the baby survived. I need you here at the hospital. Her response chilled my blood. Rafael, you can't raise 2 children alone. Maybe it's best to consider adoption. I hung up the phone in disbelief. I called my father, my 2 brothers, and Carolyn's mother. All the responses were similar. They all believe I should be realistic about my capabilities as a single father. That night, as I looked at my children in the incubator, I swore I would prove them all wrong. I would be the best father in the world to Lucas and Sophia, even if I had to do it completely alone. The first few days were the hardest of my life. Lucas and Sophia had to stay in the hospital for another 2 weeks due to their premature birth. I spent 18 hours a day in the hospital, holding their tiny hands through the incubator openings, talking to them, singing the songs Carolyn used to sing. The nurses sympathized with my plight. They taught me how to change diapers on premature babies, how to prepare bottles at the right temperature, how to recognize when they were hungry or uncomfortable. It was they, strangers, who became angels, who gave me the support my own family denied. During this time, I tried a few more times to contact my family, I sent photos of the babies on WhatsApp and left voice messages explaining that they were fine and that we would be going home soon. The responses were always evasive. "I'm glad you're okay. You need to think things through. Children need stability." My mother-in-law, Donna Marissa, was the cruelest of all. When she finally called me back, she said clearly, "Rafael, Carolyn was our only daughter. These babies deserve a structured family, with both a father and a mother. You are too young and inexperienced for this responsibility." When I told her they were her grandchildren too, she simply replied, "I preferred to remember them as part of Carolyn, not as a burden in the life of a single man." The day I brought Lucas and Sophia home was both scary and exciting. The apartment seemed enormous and incredibly quiet. I had set up the nursery myself, buying everything I thought I needed. Twice I woke up in the middle of the night in a panic, thinking something had happened to them, only to find them sleeping peacefully. For the first few months, I lived like a zombie. I slept 2 or 3 hours a night, alternating between bowls, diaper changes, and trying to get them both to stop crying at the same time. I lost 15 kilograms during that time. My eyes were always red from exhaustion. One night, when Lucas had colic and Sophia had a fever, I broke down. I sat on the floor of their room and cried like I hadn't cried since Carolyn's death. It was at that moment that I realized I was truly alone on this journey. There was no one to help me, no one to share my worries, no one to hug me and tell me everything would be okay. But when I looked at my children, I saw Carolyn's eyes in each of them. Lucas had the same determined look as hers, and Sophia the same sweet smile. In that moment, I vowed that no matter how hard it got, I would make it all work. They didn't need a family that rejected them before they even met. They had me, and I would be enough. That was how the 5 most challenging and rewarding years of my life began. 5 years raising Lucas and Sophia alone, without any help from my family. 5 years proving to myself that a father's love can be stronger than any obstacle. The first year was an emotional roller coaster. I worked as a software engineer, which allowed me to work from home most of the time. I completely adapted my routine to the babies' schedules. I would wake up at 5 a.m. to work 2 hours before they woke up, then dedicate the entire day to caring for them. I learned things I never imagined I'd need to know. How to identify different types of crying, how to prepare nutritious baby food, how to deal with a fever in the middle of the night without panicking. YouTube became my best friend. I watched hundreds of videos on baby care, child development, and even hairstyles for girls. Lucas was always the more active of the two. At 6 months old, he was already trying to crawl and putting everything in his mouth. Sophia was more observant, spending hours gazing at the colorful mobiles I hung over her crib. Each little milestone in their development was a personal victory for me. When they turned 1, I threw a birthday party just for the 3 of us. I decorated the room with blue and pink balloons, baked a cake which turned out lopsided, but was delicious, and took hundreds of photos. In that moment, watching Lucas take his first steps and Sophia clap her hands, I realized we were a complete family, even though it was just the 3 of us. The second year brought new challenges. Lucas started saying daddy at 14 months, and Sophia followed suit 2 weeks later. Hearing that word come out of their mouths was the most exciting moment of my life. I was a father, and they recognized me as such. No matter what my family thought, I was doing a good job. I started joining online single fathers groups. They shared experiences, asked for advice, and offered support to other men in the same situation. I discovered I wasn't alone on this journey. There were other fathers who, due to different circumstances, were raising children without family support. At 3 years old, Lucas and Sophia started attending daycare part-time. It was nerve-wracking leaving them on the first day, but I knew they needed social interaction with other children. The teachers always praised how well-behaved and independent they were for their age. "You're doing an excellent job," the director once told me. During this time, we moved to a larger house. I wanted them to have a backyard to play in and individual bedrooms. It was a big investment, but it was worth every penny to see their joy exploring their new space. Lucas set up a toy workshop in his room, and Sophia organized a small library with all the children's books I bought. It wasn't easy. There were nights I collapsed exhausted on the couch after putting them both to bed. There were moments I questioned whether I was making the right choices. But with every "I love you, Daddy" I heard, with every tight hug they gave me, I knew I was on the right path. At 4 years old, they already had well-defined personalities. Lucas was adventurous and curious, always asking questions about how things worked. Sophia was artistic and sensitive, loving to draw and create imaginary stories. Watching them grow and develop was my greatest source of pride and happiness. For 5 long years, I didn't receive a single call, message, or visit from any member of my family. It was as if Lucas, Sophia, and I didn't exist to them. Holidays passed without a happy birthday to the children. Christmas and New Year's were celebrated just by the 3 of us, creating our own traditions. I developed a solid routine with the children. Every morning, we had breakfast together while they told me about their dreams from the night before. Lucas always dreamed of being a superhero saving the world, and Sophia dreamed of flying over colorful rainbows. After daycare, we spent the afternoons at the park, having picnics and playing soccer. The neighborhood began to know us as the single dad family. Donna Elena, my elderly neighbor, became like a grandmother to Lucas and Sophia. She visited them every weekend, teaching them cookie recipes and telling stories of her youth. Sometimes I thought she showed more genuine affection for the children in 1 month than my entire family had shown in 5 years. During this period, I invested heavily in my children's education and well-being. Lucas showed an interest in robotics, so I enrolled him in a children's programming course. Sophia revealed a talent for drawing, so I paid for art classes on Saturdays. Each of their achievements was celebrated as if it were the greatest victory in the world. Financially, things weren't easy. Children cost a lot: diapers, medicine, clothes they outgrow quickly, educational toys, daycare fees. I worked long hours to cover it all. There were months when I had to choose between buying new clothes for myself or for them. They were always the priority. In 4th grade, Sophia asked me why she and Lucas didn't have grandparents like their school friends. It was one of the hardest questions I ever had to answer. I simply explained that sometimes families are different, but that didn't mean we were any less special. "We're a small family, but full of love," I said. Lucas, always more practical, reply, "Okay, Dad, we don't need them anyway. We have you, and you're the best dad in the world." At that moment, my heart filled with pride and, at the same time, with a silent rage against everyone who abandoned us. I started documenting everything. First words, first steps, school presentations, birthdays. I did this thinking that one day, perhaps, they would ask about their absent family, and I would have proof that we had built a beautiful life without needing anyone. Every photo and video was evidence of our strength as a family. In 5th grade, I established a special tradition. Every month I wrote a letter to each of them, telling them how they were growing, what their accomplishments were, and how proud I was. I kept these letters in a special box, planning to give them to them when they were older. During all this time, I never spoke ill of Lucas and Sophia's family. I never said they abandoned us or that they were bad people. I simply didn't mention their existence. If they asked about grandparents or aunts and uncles, I'd brush it off or say it was something they'd talk about when they were older, but inside, I carried a deep sorrow. Not because of the rejection of me, but because of the rejection of those 2 incredible children who didn't ask to be born and deserved to be loved unconditionally. They missed out on the opportunity to know Lucas and Sophia during their most precious years, and that was unforgivable. It was a Tuesday morning when I received the call that would change everything. I was preparing Lucas and Sophia's school lunch when the phone rang. It was from Carolyn's life insurance company, informing me that the insurance settlement had been finalized and that I would receive $2.5 million. I'd known about this insurance since Carolyn's death, but the bureaucratic process had dragged on for 5 years due to investigations into the accident. The insurance company needed to confirm that we weren't negligent and that the drunk driver was indeed solely at fault. During this entire time, I lived solely on my income as a software engineer. The amount was much higher than I'd imagined. Carolyn had taken out this insurance when she became pregnant with the twins, thinking it would secure their future if something happened to her. It was typical of her to always think ahead, always worrying about our family. I decided not to tell anyone about the money. I wanted to think carefully about how to best use this money for Lucas and Sophia's future. I opened a savings account for each of them and invested a large portion of it toward their college education. 2 weeks after the insurance company called, something happened that made me suspicious. My neighbor Marcus told me that a woman had stopped by his house asking about the family who lived in the blue house with 2 children. She said she was a relative of ours and had lost contact with us. Marcus, knowing our situation, said he didn't give any specific information, just confirming that we lived there. But he found it strange and decided to let me know. Rafael, in 5 years, I've never seen a single relative visit you. Why would someone show up looking for information now? Marcus's suspicion planted a seed of suspicion in my mind. Was it just a coincidence that someone from the family showed up right after the insurance was released? I hadn't mentioned the money to anyone, but lawsuits sometimes become public. I decided to investigate discreetly. I hired a private investigator to find out if anyone in my family had accessed information about the insurance process. What I discovered left me furious and, at the same time, prepared for what was to come. The detective confirmed that my mother-in-law had hired a lawyer 3 months earlier to investigate Carolyn's life insurance situation. She found out the exact amount I would receive and even the release date. She had all the information in her possession. Even more shocking was discovering that she had shared this information with her entire family. My parents, my siblings, everyone knew about the money. What's more, they were planning a reconciliation to try to get a share of the inheritance. The detective showed me WhatsApp conversations he'd accessed through one of my cousins who works in tech. The messages were disgusting. Now that he's rich, we can pretend to miss him. We'll have to be convincing. The children are our grandchildren. Nephews too. We have rights. In that moment, all the resentment I'd held on to turned into cold, calculating rage. They had abandoned me at my lowest point, rejected my children when they were just helpless babies, and now they wanted to come back for the money. But they didn't know I was aware of their every intention. And I had already begun planning exactly how to welcome them when they decided to show up. After discovering my family's true intentions, I spent weeks crafting a plan that would give me the perfect revenge. It wouldn't be impulsive or emotional. It would be calculated, precise, and devastating. They would pay for every tear I shed, for every night I spent alone caring for sick babies, for every birthday Lucas and Sophia spent without grandparents, aunts, uncles, or cousins. First, I installed security cameras throughout the house. I wanted to record every second of their reconciliation, every false word, every forced smile, every attempt at manipulation. Everything would be documented as evidence of their hypocrisy. Second, I prepared all the financial documentation. I organized bank statements, receipts for the children's expenses, medical receipts, everything that proved how I raised Lucas and Sophia alone for 5 years. I wanted to show exactly how much money I spent, how many nights of sleep I lost, how many sacrifices I made. Then I talked to my lawyer about how to legally protect the children's assets. We created a trust fund that guaranteed that neither I nor anyone else in the family could touch the money until Lucas and Sophia turned 25. That way, even if I wanted to, I couldn't hand over any of it to those interested. The most important part of the plan was to prepare Lucas and Sophia psychologically. They were now 5 years old and could understand more complex conversations. I explained, in an age-appropriate way, that some family members might come over, but that they should always remember who had been there for them throughout their lives. I also prepared a complete presentation about our 5 years together. I selected the best photos and videos from each phase: first steps, first words, birthdays, Christmases, daycare graduations. I wanted everyone to see exactly what they lost by leaving us. I even created a detailed timeline showing the dates I tried to contact each family member and how I was ignored or rejected. I had screenshots of unanswered messages, records of missed calls, and ignored emails. It was concrete proof of abandonment. To ensure maximum impact, I decided that when they showed up, I would greet them as politely as possible. I would let them express themselves fully, listening to every excuse and justification. Only then would I reveal that I knew exactly why they were there. I also prepared individual letters for each family member. In each letter, I specifically listed how each person contributed to our abandonment and how this affected Lucas and Sophia. They weren't aggressive letters, but firm and direct, explaining why they didn't deserve to be a part of our lives. The plan included a final surprise. I had decided to donate a large portion of the insurance money to charities that help single parents and orphan children. I wanted them to know that I would rather give the money to strangers than to greedy relatives. Finally, I organized a full family meeting where everyone would be present at the same time. It would be the moment when I would reveal everything I'd learned about their plans and give my final answer about the future of our relationship. The plan was ready. Now it was just a matter of waiting for them to make the first move. The first to appear was my mother-in-law, Donna Marissa. It was a Thursday morning when the doorbell rang. I opened the door and there she was, with a forced smile on her face and a bag of sweets in her hands. "Rafael, my dear son-in-law, I missed you both so much," she said, trying to hug me. I maintained my composure and invited her in. Lucas and Sophia were playing in the living room and were confused to see a stranger in the house. "Children, this is Grandma Marissa, Mommy Carolyn's mother," I explained. They looked curious, but showed no particular enthusiasm. Donna Marissa tried to interact with the children, but she was visibly uncomfortable. It was obvious she didn't know how to talk to 5-year-olds. "You look so cute. Grandma brought you candy," she said, offering the bag. Lucas asked, "Daddy, why did she only come to visit us now?" My son's innocent question caused an awkward silence. Donna Marissa stammered, "Grandma was ... She was very busy, dear. But now I want to make up for all the lost time." Sophia, always direct, replied, "But Daddy said you didn't exist." I'd never said it before, but a 5-year-old takes silence literally. I quickly intervened. "Sophia, let's play in the yard while I talk to our guest." The children left, and Donna Marissa finally revealed her true intentions. "Rafael, I know these years have been difficult for you. Maybe we were too harsh back then, but we were concerned about your well-being," she began. "Now that you've proven you can care for the children, we want to be a part of their lives. We're the only family they have." I calmly reply, "Mrs. Marissa, where were you when Lucas had pneumonia at age 2 and was hospitalized for a week? Where were you when Sophia broke her arm at age 3? Where were you when they asked why they didn't have grandparents like their little friends?" She tried to justify herself. "Rafael, you never contacted us. How were we supposed to know you needed help?" I showed her my phone, which contained all my contact attempts from the first few years. There were 47 missed calls and 23 ignored messages in the first year alone, she said. The conversation continued for 2 hours. She tried everything: emotional blackmail, promises to change, even forced tears. But I stood my ground. "Ms. Marissa, you can visit the children whenever you want, but don't expect me to forget 5 years of abandonment." When she left, I promised I'd come back this weekend with the whole family for a big get-together. It was exactly what I'd hoped for. The plan was working perfectly. In the following days, I received calls from all the other family members. My parents, my brothers Carlos and Eduardo, my cousins. All with the same excuse: "We've always missed you, but we didn't know how to approach you." They all wanted to set up a meeting to catch up and get to know Lucas and Sophia better. The meeting was scheduled for the following Sunday. It would be the day of truth, when everyone would be gathered and I could finally dot the I's and cross the T's. On Sunday, at 2 p.m., the whole family was gathered in my living room. My parents, my mother-in-law, my 2 brothers, 3 cousins, and their wives. The table was laden with food they'd brought, trying to impress Lucas and Sophia with treats and expensive gifts. The children played in the yard while the adults chatted. I heard several rehearsed phrases: "I miss you so much. You've grown so much. Your daddy is a hero." It was revolting to watch that performance. After an hour of theater, I asked everyone for their attention. "Since we're gathered here for the first time in 5 years, I'd like to share a few things with you," I began. I turned on the projector and began the presentation I'd prepared. I showed photos of Lucas and Sophia as newborns in the neonatal intensive care unit, alone with me. Then, videos of their first steps, first words, and birthdays. "These are the memories you've lost," I said. 5 years of growth, discovery, and joy that you chose not to experience. The room fell silent. I continued to show the detailed bank statements. $45,000 in medical expenses, $63,000 in education and extracurricular activities, $28,000 in clothes and toys, all paid for by myself, without any help from my family. Then I revealed the most shocking discovery, but the most interesting thing is that you all knew about Carolyn's life insurance 3 months ago. You hired lawyers, investigated the amounts, and planned this reconciliation. I showed the evidence the detective had collected. The embarrassment was widespread. Donna Marissa tried to deny it, but I had proof of everything. My father tried to justify himself by saying that family is family, but I interrupted him. A true family doesn't abandon you in difficult times. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. "Do you want to know about the insurance money?" I asked. Everyone fell silent, waiting. "Well, $2.5 million was deposited into my account 3 weeks ago." I saw everyone's eyes light up with greed. My mother-in-law even smiled discreetly. "But there's something you need to know," I continued. $2 million has already been transferred to a trust fund exclusively for Lucas and Sophia, which they will only be able to access when they turn 25. The look of hope faded from their faces. The remaining $500,000 will be donated to the Single Parent Support Institute and the orphanage in our city. The money will go to those who truly need it, not to those who only show up when there's financial interest. My brother Carlos stood up indignantly. "Rafael, you can't do this." "We're your family," I calmly reply. "You had 5 years to be a family. You chose not to be. Now live with the consequences of that choice." I handed over the individual letters had prepared. "These letters explain in detail why each of you doesn't deserve to be a part of my children's lives. You can read them at home, at your leisure." Donna Marissa tore up the letter in front of me, but the others kept it, probably curious to know what I had learned about each of them. The meeting ended with everyone leaving in outrage. I heard comments like "ungrateful," "selfish," and "you'll regret it," but I felt at peace. I had defended my children and honored Carolyn's memory. Lucas and Sophia came running into the living room after everyone had left. "Daddy, why did everyone leave so mad?" Sophia asked. I picked her up along with Lucas and explained, "Sometimes people only show up when they want something from us, not because they truly love us. That the 3 of us are a complete and happy family." If you enjoyed this story of overcoming adversity and righteous revenge, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell for more real stories of family drama. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think I did the right thing by protecting my children from this self-serving family?